Certainty does not remove doubt. It prevents it from being seen. A belief, once spoken aloud and built upon, does not need to remain true. It only needs to remain unquestioned by the person who committed to it. This is a pattern about commitment that outlives its own reasoning, not through denial, but through a quieter mechanism, the refusal to look directly at what has already changed. The tension does not resolve when the belief is proven wrong. It only tightens because the cost of admitting error has grown larger than the comfort of continuing. The belief was simple, and once it was defensible. A fixed line of fortification, built to prevent the kind of invasion that had already been lived through once, absorbed enormous resources, years of engineering, and public confidence. It was presented as certainty rather than strategy, a wall not merely of concrete, but of reassurance. Those who approved it staked judgment on its permanence. Those who defended it in public spoke with a confidence that outpaced the evidence available even at the time. Military assessments elsewhere noted the terrain it did not cover, the doctrine shifting around it, the assumptions embedded in its design that newer thinking had already begun to question. None of this altered the tone of public commitment. The belief had become inseparable from the reputations attached to it. What begins as strategic judgment rarely stays strategic for long. It becomes identity. To question the fortification was, by extension, to question the men who built it, funded it, and defended its necessity in chamber after chamber of debate. The doubt existed early, quietly, in private assessments, in officers who noted gaps in coverage, in planners who understood that the line addressed the previous conflict more precisely than the next one. But doubt expressed too early carries a cost that certainty does not. A planner voicing early concern risked being the one remembered as having undermined the project rather than having improved it. The statement was repeated with greater certainty, not because it was confirmed, but because it could no longer be reconsidered without cost. This is the shape the pattern takes: private uncertainty, restated in public as confidence, until the public version becomes the only version anyone is willing to hold. Each repetition made reversal more expensive. Each defense of the fortification in front of skeptics hardened the position of the one defending it. This is not deception in the ordinary sense. The men who spoke with certainty largely believed what they said, or believed it enough. The mechanism is subtler than lying. It is the slow replacement of assessment with commitment, until the two become indistinguishable even to the person holding them. As years passed, and the strategic terrain shifted further from the assumptions embedded in the original design, the pattern did not correct itself. It reinforced. New reports were read selectively, weighted toward whatever confirmed the existing position, softened wherever they complicated it. This is not incompetence. It is the ordinary mechanics of identity protecting itself from contradiction. A person who has built years of professional standing around a judgment does not evaluate new evidence about that judgment the way a stranger would. They evaluate it for what it costs them to accept. The military planners who continued advocating for the fortified line into the later years did not do so blindly. Many were intelligent, experienced, capable of holding contradictory information in mind. What they could not do was hold that information at the center of attention long enough for it to challenge the belief they had already staked their judgment on. Doubt was not absent. It was displaced, reassigned to footnotes, to secondary considerations, to concerns that could be acknowledged in private conversation, but never allowed to alter the public posture. A commander privately conceded the gap in coverage to the north while publicly reaffirming the strength of the overall position, because the concession, spoken aloud in the wrong room, would have unmade something too large to rebuild. This displacement rarely announces itself as displacement. It arrives disguised as diligence. Another study commissioned, another inspection scheduled, another round of reassurance gathered from officers who had already learned what answer was expected of them. The appearance of continued scrutiny became, paradoxically, a substitute for the scrutiny itself. Each new report that confirmed the existing position was treated as validation. Each report that complicated it was treated as incomplete, requiring further study before it could be acted upon. The process of checking had quietly become a process of confirming, and few inside it could have said precisely when the shift occurred. This displacement has a particular texture. It does not feel from the inside like denial. It feels like loyalty to a decision, to colleagues who share it, to years already invested. The internal experience is not, "I am avoiding the truth." It is closer to, "I understand this better than the doubt suggests." The mind does not experience its own protection as protection. It experiences it as clarity, sharpened rather than narrowed, confident rather than defensive. This is what makes the pattern so difficult to interrupt from within. The person inside it does not feel trapped. They feel certain, and certainty does not go looking for its own exit. By the time the fortification's limitations became impossible to privately ignore, the public commitment had calcified into something closer to identity than judgment. To abandon the position now would not simply mean updating a strategic assessment. It would mean admitting that years of confident public assertion had rested on something increasingly hollow. The doubt, when it finally surfaced into visibility, arrived too late to be acted upon with the flexibility it would have required earlier. Not because the information was unavailable, but because the structure built around the belief had grown too large to dismantle without dismantling the people who had built it. There is a boundary the mind reaches here that it cannot cross from the inside. Recognition is possible. A planner can see, with total clarity, that the doctrine no longer matches the threat it was built to address. But recognition does not automatically produce change, because change requires unmaking a version of oneself that has already been publicly performed, repeatedly, for years. The limit is not intellectual. It is not a failure to understand the evidence. It is the cost of what understanding the evidence would require the self to become someone who was wrong, visibly, for a long time, in front of people who trusted the certainty. This is where the pattern holds. Not in ignorance, and not in dishonesty, but in the quiet arithmetic between what a person can admit and what admitting it would cost them. The belief does not need to be defended forever. It only needs to be defended past the point where reversal remains affordable. After that, commitment sustains itself, independent of the reasoning that first produced it, carried forward by the accumulated weight of every previous defense. Recognition does not always create change. Sometimes it only reveals what was already there, held in place by something stronger than evidence. Explore more reflections on belief, perception, and recurring human patterns on timeless questions.